So in this video, I'm going to recommend 5 websites and or apps that I use a lot as an academic of Japanese, and some of which I've been using for almost 20 years as someone studying Japanese. These are all things that I think are really helpful, especially once you reach the intermediate/advanced level, and a lot of them I haven't seen people talk about, so I hope they're new to you. So first and foremost, I very much recommend checking out the site englishonweb.alc.co.jp. This is actually an English dictionary for Japanese learners, so you kind of have to backwards engineer it. But what it does is, in contrast to a lot of other dictionaries, while it does provide definitions, it provides a large number of example sentences for any Japanese word that you type in. This is really useful because when you're learning Japanese, you're going to encounter a lot of vocabulary that don't really have explanations with them, and looking up how they are actually used in sentences can help you figure out how to use them in, a way that's natural and makes sense. So, for instance, say you're struggling with a transitive-intransitive verb pair, because we don't have a lot of those in English, like, say, tsukumaeru and tsukumaru. If you look these up, you can see, the transitive one works with the particle o, and the intransitive one, you can note, okay, I use ga to mark the thing that will be captured, and if it's going to be captured by something, I can use the particle ni. It allows you to kind of backwards engineer and find out how to use these sentences. Because it also searches a large database, if you learn a word that you might feel is kind of obscure, popping in there and seeing if there's any examples or how many can help, as sometimes, of course, authors use words that are rather rare, and you might try to use them and end up with people not understanding you, and this website can help you see, about the extent that something is being applied. It's also great for looking up the difference between synonyms, because, again, this isn't something that dictionaries really list, but if you look at kind of the context of the sentences, what kind of example sentences these words are used in, it can help you see, okay, this is kind of the vibe of this word versus a similar word. To give an example from my own life, I had a student once in introductory that I asked them, what they did yesterday, and they said they played a soccer game. I was like, oh, どうでしたか? And they said, 敗北しました. And that's like fine, I guess, but makemashita in that context would make a lot more sense. They both mean lose, but one is more like defeat. And if you look at the example sentences that makeru and haibokusuru are used in on this website, you can kind of see, oh, okay, there's a difference to how these are applied, at least, in formal context where people aren't exaggerating or being a bit metaphorical, etc. Knowing the difference can help avoid kind of awkward pauses in your dialogue. Anyway, even though this website isn't made for us, it's not made for learners of Japanese, it absolutely is a great resource for, learners of Japanese. The same thing goes with this website here, BizKeigo, specifically the section on scenes. Now, this is going to require you to, say, have N3, maybe pre-N2 level Japanese, but this is some of the best, most straightforward and direct, easy to understand explanations of common Keigo issues that I've basically ever found. It's an old website, it's all text-based, and the scenes have these dialogues between a teacher and a dog, and it's really great. They just ask each other questions and engage in a really simple dialogue that is written in, not beginner Japanese, but pretty basic, casual but polite Japanese without any, verbal tics or anything like that. And an example like this where they talk about ukagao, they start by saying that, yeah, you can't use that to talk about someone else's actions. They talk about why that korareru can't be used with the teiku desai form. They give examples of what to do instead, and even give further examples, and just by reading this dialogue, you learn a whole lot. It's not an introduction to Keigo course, but if you've already done the introduction to Keigo in like your textbook in your classroom, this website is a really good place to go to reinforce some of your knowledge and to learn about why things are, because that's something that's not often included in textbooks, lectures, etc. It's also, which I appreciate very much as a sociolinguist, not very prescriptivist, in that it will note that, some errors are becoming common enough that they aren't really seen as errors. But, and I think this is fair, some people that are more strict about Keigo, etc., will note that you are making the mistake. So they flag something as an error, even if they note that, it might not be an error in the future, which is great. That's the way I think these should be presented. There are also quizzes, and the rest of the pages are great, but the dialogues are really where I think this website shines. It's an old school website, it's very bare bones, but if you're looking to get your Keigo better, get your knowledge about Keigo better, it is the best thing, and again, free, that I've ever seen. Yeah, it is made for native Japanese speakers, not Japanese learners like us, but that doesn't mean we can't use it. Then I get a lot of questions about what dictionaries I use in this video, and so I just have to recommend Takabodo. This is an excellent free dictionary that I'm really impressed by. The range of words in it is quite high. It has a lot of example sentences. I've noticed some errors in some, but that's a minor nitpick. And if you pay for it, you can even get a kanji search that lets you draw the kanji, but the radical search is highly functional as well. A lot of people get excited that it shows pitch accent, but personally I like that it shows the particle that verbs are used with. I think that's a really useful feature to just have right even before you check the definition. I've used a lot of dictionary apps over the last few decades, and this one is one that I'm really impressed with, especially given that you don't have to pay anything for the base use. If you don't have an app though, I've always just really liked jisho.org. It's very, again, straightforward, simple, works, and pretty strong range of vocabulary. So if you have access to those two, I think that's kind of all you need in most cases. Then, while speaking of apps, the Kanji Study app by Chase Colburn is just fantastic in my opinion. Again, the free version is solid, but like there's a lot of apps on my phone, and there's somewhere I'm like, why have I ever paid any money for this? And in others where I think every dollar I spent on this was absolutely worth it. And Kanji Study is one of those apps. It's very easy to use. It has a huge range of ways to test your kanji. I really like the draw the kanji thing, and there's even a setting where if you make a mistake, it puts the kanji at the end, so you have to redo the kanji if you make any mistake on it. It can be very, very frustrating, but again, you choose the buttons you press, and it makes for a really, really intense and good kanji review. Something you can do just waiting for the bus. I've broken mine down into little sets of 20 kanji, and when I'm just sitting around bored, I practice some kanji with it. It's got a good radical search, it's very, very easy to navigate, and it's regularly updated, so I'd really highly recommend it, even though you do have to use the paid version to get something out of it. Online then, for free versions of Kanji Study, the website kakijun.com, not kakijun.jp, that's an okay website, but kakijun.com is very, very impressive in terms of stroke diagrams. If you're a teacher, the materials on it are really, really great and free. And if you want to be really old school, www.jdict is something that used to be like the website that everyone was studying Japanese knew. It's old school, it's very, very old school, it's a relic of the old internet, but it's still very, very useful and very, very functional. And if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend playing with it as well. Finally, my fifth recommendation is Google. And don't turn off the video, I know, I'm being serious here. Google can be a very useful Japanese study tool if you learn this one little trick that was taught to me by the old wizards of the old times. Because the problem with Google is that you go on and you type a Japanese word and you get Chinese or you get English, and we don't want either of those, right? We want Japanese. So the trick is type your word and then type towa, and all your problems are solved. See, Chugoku alone in Google understandably gives results in Chinese, add towa, and bam, we're all in Japanese. Look at Nihon. You type it in and you get some Japanese, but you get English, and we don't want English. We don't want English. We want Japanese results. So we do Nihon towa, and bam, English is gone. It's deleted. It is a fantastic trick, and it makes your Google searches much better, making it an actual functional way to learn about Japanese, especially Japanese nouns that don't have any hiragana, katakana in them, etc. And that's it. Those are my 5. A lot of these aren't for beginners, so just as a quick shout out, I would say that I don't use it very much because of where I am in my Japanese study, but everything I've ever seen from Tofugu has always been really good, so shout out to them. And I guess since it's my video on my channel, I should note that there's a lot of free materials on my own website too, so check that out as well. Anyway, hope this was useful, and I'll see you in the next video.